Hello, health lovers. So, it's student nurse Victory, and today I'll be talking about the endocrine system. Now, we have two systems. We have the exocrine, we have the endocrine. So, the endocrine is what we are going to be focusing today. Now, endo and crine, that is two words. We have endo meaning inside, and we have crine meaning to secrete. That is inside secretion. Now, what is the endocrine system? Now, the endocrine system is a network of glands and organs, because when you hear system, what comes to your mind should be organs. In the organization of life, we have cell makes up tissues, tissues makes up organs, then organs makes up system. So, our first thing that should be in our definition is network of organs. Now, what is the endocrine system? The endocrine system is otherwise known as ductless gland, and is a network of organs and other glands that produce a chemical messenger. Now, what is this chemical messenger? This chemical messenger are called hormones. So they produce a chemical messenger and they secrete them directly into the bloodstream. Now, after secreting them directly into the bloodstream, it gets to the target cell, the target organ that it needs to act on and regulate the activities of the body. So basically, we have defined the endocrine system. So what are the actions of the endocrine system? The endocrine system has two actions. We have the inhibitory action and the excitatory action. Now, you may ask, what is inhibitory action? What is excitatory action? Now, I'm going to give an example of the action of the endocrine system. Now, let's take, for instance, a woman during pregnancy and is in labor. She will begin to contract. Now, that's to say that the oxytocin, which is an hormone, has excited an action called the contraction, and this is done by the oxytocin. Now, once the woman put to birth, she gives birth to the baby, the placenta, and the membrane. The next thing, the contraction stops. Now, what inhibits that contraction is still the endocrine system. So if we go further, we'll understand more about the excitatory and the inhibitory. So the endocrine system excites an action in the body. For example, the adrenal gland is a gland for flight. That's the noradrenaline and the adrenaline. They are hormones for flight and fight. So once something wrong is happening, they excite that action. You see yourself jumping a fence that on a normal level you can't even jump, but when everything is relaxed, that action and that secretion is reduced. So that is the meaning of excite. We have so many numerous examples, so you could make your research on it. You may ask, how does this hormones get to the target cell? Do they just produce and it just flies like that to this target cell, or maybe an hormone in the throat is produced? Does it just get to, like, how do they get to the target cell? Now, the first thing we need to know is that each of these glands are surrounded by a network of capillaries. Now, when you hear capillaries, the first thing that comes to your mind should be diffusion. That's diffusing from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. So these capillaries covers these glands, and what happens is that once the hormones are secreted, the capillary diffuse this hormone from the region of higher concentration, which is the point of secretion, to the region of lower concentration, which is the target cell. And obviously the bloodstream is a network of capillaries. Now, moving forward, we have the glands in the endocrine system. Now we have one pineal gland, we have one pituitary gland, then we have one thyroid gland, then we have four parathyroid glands, we have one thymus gland, then we have the pancreatic islet of the Langerhans, then we have two adrenal gland, and we have the gonads. Now let's take that together. We have one pineal gland, we have one pituitary gland, we have one thyroid gland, we have four parathyroid gland, we have one thymus gland, we have the pancreatic islet of Langerhans, we have two adrenal gland, and we have the gonadotrophins, that is divided into two testes in men and two ovaries in female. Now, moving forward in this video, we are going to basically talk about the pituitary gland. So the pituitary gland, the first thing that should come to our mind is that it is the master gland. Now, when we say that the pituitary gland is the master gland, that is obviously because it regulates the activities of other glands in the endocrine system. It's responsible for, like, the thyroid gland, the adrenal gland. It regulates all the glands in the endocrine system, and that's what makes it the master gland. Now, where is this pituitary gland? The pituitary gland is located at the base of the skull, which is the sphenoid bone. It's located at the base of the skull, which is the sphenoid bone. And it lies in a small bony cavity called the sella tonica. If you check the anatomy of the skull, you will know the depression in the middle of the sphenoid bone, and that is the sella tonica. That is where the pituitary gland depressed on. That's where the pituitary gland lies. Now, the next thing we need to know is that it lies beneath the hypothalamus. It lies beneath the hypothalamus. Another name for the pituitary gland is called the hypophysis. So you could make a research why the pituitary gland is called the hypophysis. Now, another thing we need to know is that the pituitary gland is connected to the hypothalamus. Remember, we say it lies beneath the hypothalamus. So it is connected to the hypothalamus by a thin stalk called the infundibulum stalk. Now, we move forward to the weight. The weight of the pituitary gland is about 500 to 700 milligrams. Then we have the size, the shape rather, sorry. So the shape of the pituitary gland is roughly oval in shape. Now, moving forward, we have the divisions of the pituitary gland. We have 3 divisions. We have the anterior pituitary gland, otherwise known as the adrenohypophysis. We have the intermediate lobe, and we have the posterior pituitary gland, otherwise known as the neurohypophysis. Now, moving forward, let's talk about the adrenohypophysis. That is the anterior pituitary gland. Now, the anterior pituitary gland is otherwise known as the adrenohypophysis. It's derived from the oral ectoderm, and it constitutes 70% of the pituitary gland, and that is to say it is the largest of all the pituitary gland. It's the biggest part of the pituitary gland. Now, moving forward, we have 3 parts of the adrenohypophysis. We have the pars distalis, we have the pars tuberalis, and we have the pars intermedia. Now, take note, the main hormone secreting portion of the pituitary gland, of the anterior pituitary gland, is the pars distalis. That is the main hormone secreting portion. That is where all the hormones comes out from. Now, the pars tuberalis wraps around the infundibulum. Now, we talk about the pars intermedia. This is the part that separates the anterior and the posterior pituitary gland. So, moving forward, let's talk about the hormones secreted by the anterior pituitary gland. The anterior pituitary gland secretes 6 hormones. So, we're going to list that together. We have the growth hormone, we have the luteinizing hormone, we have the prolactin, then we also have the follicle stimulating hormone, we have the thyroid stimulating hormone, and we have the adrenocorticotrophic hormones. And these hormones regulate the actions of other glands to release hormones. That's why we say it is the master gland. Now, let's talk about the posterior pituitary gland. The posterior pituitary gland is otherwise known as the neurohypophysis. Is derived from the neuroectoderm, and it constitutes about 30% of the pituitary gland. That's to say it is smaller. The adrenohypophysis is larger and the neurohypophysis is smaller. Now, it has 2 parts. It has the pars nervosa and it has the infundibular stalk. Now, take note, the pars nervosa is the main hormone secreting portion of the neurohypophysis. Now, moving forward, we are going to be talking about the blood supply. How is blood supplied to the pituitary gland? Now, we have the arterial supply. The arterial supply is through the branches of the hypophysis arteries. Now, we have the venous drainage. The venous drainage is through the dura sinuses in the brain. So there are veins in the dura sinuses in the brain that drains the oxygenated blood from the pituitary gland. Now, nervous supply, we have the sympathetic and parasympathetic. So thank you very much for watching. We are done with the pituitary gland. So do well to form your notes on it. In our next video, we are going to be talking about other glands. So thank you very much. Do well to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Bye.